Dobro večer, ja sam Andi Mioš. Dobrodošli u novo izdanje Preko granice. Ruska invazija na Ukrajinu ušla je u 9. dan. Pregovori Kijeva i Moskve o prekidu vatre za sada su rezultirali samo dogovorom o uspostavi humanitarnih koridora. Prema podacima ukrajinskih vlasti poginulo je više od 2000 civila, a Jelisejska palača je nakon razgovora Vladimira Putina i Emanuela Makrona upozorila da najgore tek slijedi. Više od 1 milion osoba izbjeglo iz Ukrajine, dok je više od 160.000 interno raseljeno, pokazuju podaci Ujedinjenih naroda. Kijev tvrdi da je do sada u ruskoj invaziji ubijeno više od 2000 civila. Žestoki raketni napadi na ukrajinske gradove poput Harkova, Kijeva i Mariupolja i dalje traju. U eskalaciji rata gađa se sve više civilnih objekata i ključne nevojne infrastrukture. Tokom borbi danas u ranim jutarnjim satima moglo je doći do nuklearne katastrofe. Prema tvrdnjama Kijeva, ruske snage su granatirale nuklearnu elektranu Zaporižje. Došlo je do požara, a vatra je nakon prestanka borbe ugašena. Ukrajinci su potvrdili da je elektrana sada pod ruskom kontrolom. Najteža situacija po civile u Ukrajini u trenutku snimanja ove emisije je u Mariupolju, strateški važnom lučkom gradu na jugu zemlje. Grad sa više od 400.000 stanovnika je potpuno opkoljen i u blokadi. Gradske vlasti su navele da su građani ostali bez vode, struje i grijanja, te da ruske snage sprečavaju dostavu osnovnih potrepština i sprečavaju evakuaciju. Za uzimanjem tog grada i susjednog Melitopolja, Moskva bi osigurala kopnenu vezu Rostova na Donu i Krima i preuzela potpunu kontrolu nad Azovskim morem. Tužilaštvo Međunarodnog krivičnog suda u Hagu je objavilo da otvara istragu o mogućim ratnim zločinima počinjenim u Ukrajini nakon što je to zatražilo 39 država članica suda. Istraga će obuhvatiti incidente u Ukrajini od novembra 2013. godine pa nadalje. Predsjednik Ukrajine Volodimir Zelenski poručio je da je ruska taktika promijenjena i da granatiranje civila pokazuje da je njihov prvobitni plan brze pobjede propao.
Ми народ, який за тиждень зламав плани ворога. Плани, які будувалися роками, підло, прораховано, з ненавистю до нашої країни, до наших людей.
O sve težoj humanitarnoj situaciji u Ukrajini u nastavku razgovaramo sa nezavisnom novinarkom i saradnicom Centra za analizu evropskih politika Olgom Tokarjuk. Dobro večer, Olga. Međunarodni krivični sud u Hagu je otvorio istragu o mogućim ratnim zločinima u ruskoj agresiji na Ukrajinu. Kako gledate na ovaj korak?
Well, I welcome this step. Russia is committing war crimes by attacking civilian objects, by hitting schools, hospitals, ambulances, residential buildings, killing a lot of civilians. At least 2,000 civilians have died, according to the Ukrainian government figures. Among them, there are dozens of children. You know, maternity wards in the hospitals are being hit by Russian missiles. So what is this if not war crimes? And these crimes should be investigated, and all those who perpetrate them should be brought to justice. Those who give orders, those who, execute these orders, but also, in my opinions, all, the propagandists who were inciting hatred towards Ukrainians for many, many years, and we are now seeing the consequences of this hatred.
Kao novinarka, kada kažete propaganda, na šta tačno mislite? Sa čime se Ukrajinci trenutno susreću u medijima i na društvenim mrežama kada je riječ o dezinformacijama?
Well, it is not a new thing. This is not that we are something that we are only facing now when Russia has invaded Ukraine, fully invaded a week ago. Ukrainians have been targets of Russian propaganda and disinformation for the last 8 years, at least since 2014, when Russia first invaded Donbass and annexed Crimea. If you follow the coverage of Ukraine on Russian state media during all these years, you wouldn't be surprised to, at what is happening now. Because for these 8 years, they were basically dehumanizing Ukrainians in all possible ways, talking about them as Nazis, as scum, as inferior, as, those who are worthy of being exterminated. All this kind of genocidal language that leads to war crimes. And I think people in Bosnia know what it means and know what kind of how propaganda can, lead to the worst possible crimes against humanity. And what we are facing now, at least, I'm seeing that a lot of the Western countries and the world are finally waking up to all these Russian lies that have been taken seriously in some places of the world. Well, maybe not the most outrageous lies, but things like Ukrainians are Nazis, Ukraine is an independent state, Ukraine is not worth supporting. Russian disinformation was trying to install these narratives in many Western societies and the media for all these 8 years. And it fell on fertile ground in many places across Europe, where politicians and the media and, the opinion leaders were eager to repeat this kind of things because they didn't want to lose their business ties with Russia, because, they didn't want to lose their political ties with Russia because of Russian money, and sometimes just because of plain stupidity. So, unfortunately, the ground for this offensive, for this aggression, for this genocide against Ukrainians have been prepared for many, many years. And I'm hoping that finally, the world now wakes up to the dangers of disinformation and propaganda of the Russian state machine that is leading to such terrible war crimes now.
Prema posljednjim procjenama koje je objavio UN, više od 1 milion Ukrajinaca je izbjeglo iz zemlje. Kakva je situacija sa interno raseljenim osobama?
Yes, well, I'm currently based in the Western Ukraine, in a location that I would not to disclose, would like not to disclose due to safety concerns. But here in the Western Ukraine, like, the main impact of this war is the huge influx of internally displaced people. Well, of course, we are also hearing sirens, and we have to hide in the basements and in the bomb shelters several times a day. But there is no fighting, fortunately, for a moment, so it is safe for those people fleeing the conflict and fleeing the affected areas. I can say, also for myself here, we are currently hosting in our house 8 people from Kyiv who fled the fighting with small children. Also people I know here, almost like every family is doing something to help the internally displaced people, either hosting them in their houses, like family from Kharkiv is living in another house of our friends, or bringing clothes and food and medicines to the special centers of volunteer centers that have been established. I visited one of these centers yesterday, and I saw this massive effort of solidarity of the local population in this area of Ukraine that is still safe to help those people that have been affected by the conflict. A lot of volunteers, the place is buzzing, with volunteers willing to dedicate their time and resources to help those who have been affected. And not only IDPs, the centers, the volunteers are also helping the Ukrainian army. They are trying to provide the army on the front line with the medicines, because the most dire need is of drugs, tactical medicine kits, life-saving medical equipment that soldiers on the front line need. And they're also trying to help civilians who are stranded, who are stuck in the areas where the heavy fighting is going on, particularly in Kyiv and in Kharkiv. It is still possible to reach those areas, unlike some other ones that have been cut off, like Kherson or Mariupol, where civilians are really under a blockade, under siege, basically, and they cannot get any kind of humanitarian assistance because Russians will not let it in. So, the people from the Western Ukraine are trying to reach those areas that are still under Ukrainian control and where people are running out of food, of water, of medicines, and to help them. Yesterday there was this news that really raised my spirits, that a village, residents of a town, of a small town in Rivne region, this is northern, northwestern Ukraine, close to the border with Belarus and Poland, they've made 2.5 tons of dumplings, with their own hands, like dumplings, to send to civilians in the areas affected by the fighting. And this kind of effort is going on in every Ukrainian city and town that is still safe. Massive amounts of aid that people donate, that they want to, help or the army or the civilians in the affected areas, or the IDPs that fled to their parts of the country.
Hvala vam što ste govorili za Preko granice.
Thank you.
Ukrajinske vlasti su potvrdile ruske navode da je Herson, veliki grad na jugu Ukrajine, sada pod ruskom kontrolom. Ukrajina tvrdi da je od početka invazije ubijeno oko 9000 ruskih vojnika, dok su Rusi objavili gubitke od 498 vojnika. Društvenim mrežama proširilo se mnogo snimaka djelovanja drona Bayraktar, turske proizvodnje i uništenih oklopnih vozila i tenkova ruske armije. Taj dron postao je omiljeno oružje u Ukrajini, a dobio je i svoju pjesmu.
Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар. Байрактар.
Mnogo dalekosežniju eskalaciju rata dao je naslutiti ruski predsjednik Vladimir Putin, koji je u subotu naredio vojsci da nuklearno oružje stavi u stanje visoke pripravnosti zbog, kako je rekao, agresivnih izjava zemalja NATO saveza. Da će se treći svjetski rat voditi upravo nuklearnim oružjem, poručio je jučer i ruski šef diplomatije Sergej Lavrov.
Но обращаю ваше внимание, что это в голове западных политиков постоянно вертится ядерная война, а не в голове россиян.
Generalna skupština Ujedinjenih naroda usvojila je prije 2 dana rezoluciju kojom se najoštrije osuđuje ruska invazija na Ukrajinu sa samo 5 glasova protiv. Osim naravno Moskve, protiv su bile Bjelorusija, Sirija, Sjeverna Koreja i Eritreja. 35 zemalja, uključujući Kinu i Indiju, bilo je suzdržano. Jučer održani pregovori ruske i ukrajinske delegacije na bjelorusko-poljskoj granici o prekidu vatre rezultirali su dogovorom o uspostavi humanitarnih koridora za evakuaciju civila iz područja u kojima se vode borbe, a dogovoren je i nastavak razgovora. O tome kako Ukrajinci vide ove pregovore više će nam reći osnivač platforme javne diplomatije u Ukrajini i član savjetodavnog vijeća mladih, predsjednik Ukrajine Denis Ganža. Dobroveče, Denise. Prošla je cijela sedmica ruske invazije, ušli smo u 9. dan. Kakvo trenutno javno mnijenje i raspoloženje vlada u Ukrajini?
Hello, it's nice to be talking to you. I wouldn't say good evening because probably for most of my fellow Ukrainians it's not very good. I personally myself managed to leave Kharkiv on the second day of war, now staying not far from Kyiv. And it's really, what I want to say, you feel devastation at some point, but what is the most important thing, you feel the need to act, and you do understand that the only way to stop this is Ukrainian victory, because we have already given so much, we have already lost nearly anything. I personally don't know if I have a flat. I personally don't know if some of my friends are alive. I'm trying to confirm this right now. But we are ready to fight till the last breath. And we are not fighting just for ourselves. We are fighting for the future of the whole Europe. We are fighting for the future of democracy.
Spomenuli ste da ste iz Harkova. Ovih dana smo vidjeli stravične slike iz tog grada. Broj poginulih civila je u oštrom porastu. Je li to predstavlja promjenu ruske taktike?
It's hard to say what are Russian tactics, because their tactics are barbarian. They're inhuman. They plan to seize Kharkiv, Kyiv, Kherson in 2 days. It's the 7th day of war here. We are fighting. If they need like us to do this 2 weeks, 2 months, we will continue. But I don't really understand for what they are destroying our cities, because there is no logic in what they're doing. There is nothing human in their actions. It's just like the medieval seizure of the biggest cities. It's destroyal of the center of Europe. And I hope that this might stop. And also, it's really important. Even you from Bosnia can help us. Join our digital forces, join our IT forces. You can also come to Ukraine and join our territorial defense. Help us with any equipment you think you can give us, with money you can provide the Ukrainian army with, or support our volunteers who are working 24 hours per 7 to achieve the good conditions for everyone, to make sure that everybody is alive and having everything that they need for their lives.
Cilj gotovo cijelog svijeta je sada zaustaviti rat i krvoproliće. Vjerujete li da razgovori ukrajinske i ruske delegacije mogu dovesti do prekida vatre?
Let me stress on this. Ukraine doesn't want war and it is willing to negotiate whenever it's possible. The other thing is that Russia do not want to accept any changes of their terms. And these terms at the same time are unacceptable for us. We will not give up even just 1 centimeter of our territory. We will not give up Crimea and Donbass. We will not give up our freedom. And that's why Russia is losing this war. You are seeing this. They are losing at every front. Yes, they are bombarding our cities. They're killing civilians, but their army, what is it? You told us this is the second most powerful army in the world? Truly? I think that Ukrainian tractor is more powerful than the whole Ukrainian army. And you have seen the scenes, how people are stopping with their bodies, tanks. It's really wonderful to see. And the only way this war can really end, even if they stop shooting us, they will continue destroying our country. The only way to stop this is to stop Putin's regime once and forever. And if Putin wants USSR back, if he wants really to destroy his economy, let him continue doing this. Russia, who lived for many years in the USSR with no Coca-Cola, no jeans, no burgers, give them this.
Hvala vam što ste govorili za Preko granice.
Thank you.
Upravo ste čuli razgovor sa Denisom Ganžom. Važno je napomenuti da je učešće na stranim ratištima prema krivičnom zakonu Bosne i Hercegovine krivično djelo. Hibridno ratovanje, dezinformacije, propaganda i lažne vijesti realnost su Ukrajine još od sukoba na istoku zemlje 2014. godine. Sličan šablon pratili su i mjeseci napetosti prije invazije. Fabricirani videosnimci i lažni navodi o ratnim zločinima tema su u kojem se bave usko specijalizirani digitalni stručnjaci, a sa nama je u nastavku jedan od njih, Givi Gigitašvili, istraživač digitalnog forenzičkog laboratorija Atlantskog vijeća. Dobro večer, Givi. Koliku ulogu u ovom sukobu igraju hibridno ratovanje, dezinformacije i propaganda?
Good evening, Andy. Yeah, indeed. Everyone has kind of been observing that Russia is conducting a hybrid warfare against Ukraine, which involves conventional military forces and also use of some non-conventional hybrid techniques and tools against Ukraine. And perhaps the significant element of the current escalation in Ukraine are those false flag operations that we have been observing since December 2021, at least. Basically, Kremlin tried to justify its intervention into interference and military incursion into Ukraine, and to that end, Moscow put some effort to create a pretext for military involvement in Ukraine. And just to again go back to December 2021, we saw the first false flag narratives that appeared in information space from Russia when a foreign minister of Russia claimed that Ukraine was preparing, together with the United States, some provocations using chemical weapons, and Russia needed to protect people living in eastern Ukraine, meaning in Donetsk and Lugansk self-proclaimed People's Republics, where currently more than 700,000 people own Russian passports. And that was already some early signs that Russia wanted to find a reason to invade Ukraine. And I would say then January was more quiet month because Russia sent some security demands to NATO. Then NATO responded to this letter, and Russia was overall unhappy with NATO's response. And starting from early February, we already see more false flag narratives and operations coming up from Kremlin. For instance, the narratives about Polish mercenaries was very kind of actively amplified by Kremlin media, because self-proclaimed republics argued that Polish mercenaries were fighting in eastern Ukraine together with Ukrainian forces against Donetsk and Lugansk. And first claim emerged on February 7th. Then on February 14th, there was another claim made by Donetsk separatist leaders as if Ukraine was preparing terrorist acts with the help of Polish mercenaries. And then already on February 18th, there was a quite well-known video published in a Telegram channel, which allegedly depicted the fight between Donetsk militia on the one hand and Polish mercenaries and Ukrainian saboteurs on the other hand. But open source community checked this video promptly, and as it turned out, it was not an authentic video. It was an edited video, and certain elements of this video, for instance, audio, was taken from YouTube video, which basically dates back to 2010. This was one of the really outlandish false flag operation that Kremlin tried to bring to the information space. But after that, Kremlin also claimed that Ukrainian official was became a target of bomb explosion carried out by Ukrainian special forces in Donetsk, which also turned out to be false. And apart from that, there were some really false claims about Ukrainians planning to explode administration building in Donetsk, or some really phantom and non-existent explosion, again coming from Ukraine. And basically Kremlin really tried to convince mainly domestic audience that Ukraine was an aggressor against Donetsk and Lugansk, and it was planning to carry out a genocide against people living in Donbass. And that's why it was needed from the Kremlin to act and respond to Ukraine's aggression to protect these people. But as I mentioned, all these false flag narratives were mainly for domestic audience because, just to put it simply, they were orchestrated in a quite kind of amateur manner, meaning that it was very easy to verify that these videos were false. It was also not very sophisticated in terms of the narratives, because we have seen these scenarios in the past elsewhere. So the Kremlin's playbook was kind of really explicit this time.
Hvala za vaše viđenje i što ste govorili za Preko granice. Evropska unija obustavila je emitiranje ruskih medija Sputnik i Russia Today širom bloka zbog dezinformacija i manipulacija. Moskva je s druge strane pripremila zakon prema kojem se lažne informacije o djelovanju ruske vojske kažnjavaju sa do 15 godina zatvora. O alatima koji se trenutno koriste u plasiranju dezinformacija govorimo sa Kristinom Gildejevom, istraživačicom kompanije Logically, koja uz pomoć vještačke inteligencije pronalazi i razotkriva dezinformacije. Dobro večer, Kristina. Ukrajina i zemlje Zapada upozoravaju na propagandu koju širi Moskva. Kakva je trenutna situacija kada je riječ o dezinformacijama?
Good evening. Yes, the situation with the disinformation is intense right now. And I think, first of all, it's extremely important to say that propaganda in Russia, inside the country, targeting Russians, has been spreading for 8 years. Since the annexation of Crimea. So at least for 8 years, people have been consuming fake news about Ukraine spreading by the Russian state TV. And another flow of propaganda and fake news is targeting Ukrainians right now. And it's more like on social media and especially, but not only Telegram. And since I have more information about Telegram, I will use it as an example. So first of all, there is a lot of information, and sometimes all this information is contradicting each other. So, for example, we can use Kharkiv as an example, and Ukrainian official sources has been reporting that Kharkiv is Ukrainian, and at the same time, we have lots of information coming from Russian Telegram channels claiming that Kharkiv is Russian, and Ukrainian army escaped, and the Ukrainian army is terrified, and Ukrainian army joined the Russian army. And this is fake, and the aim of this type of fake news is just to scare the local population, to make sure that they don't trust Ukrainian army anymore, that they're absolutely confused and disorientated, and this is like one of the main aims.
Od početka invazije u većim ruskim gradovima se organiziraju antiratne demonstracije. Da li su slike i snimci protesta nešto čemu obični građani mogu imati pristup u Rusiji?
Technically, yes. So first of all, there are media outlets like Novaya Gazeta or Meduza, basically the outlets that are blamed to be foreign agents. They cover it a lot. Some people share pictures and videos on social media. I saw a couple of bloggers talking about this. But the problem is that normally people have like this bubble of information they consume. So, for example, the average, Sputnik consumer would never go to check what's on Meduza or to see like what do the bloggers do. So they most likely live in this bubble of the information they are used to consume.
Kako tumačite odluku Moskve da zabrani izvještavanje o ratu na bilo koji način osim u skladu sa zvaničnim narativom? Postoji li možda bojazan o pobuni domaće javnosti?
I don't really want to speculate about uprising, but I think that this is the continuation of the Kremlin media policy. So I already mentioned the foreign agents and media like Meduza or Novaya Gazeta, who are trying to show like another perspective of everything. But I definitely can say that Kremlin tries to keep all the media under control and demands from media to echo the official narrative.
Hvala vam što ste govorili za Preko granice.
Thank you.
To je sve o centralnoj temi. Sada je vrijeme za drugačije vijesti. Gotovo 200 država svijeta podržalo je na Skupštini UN-a za okoliš u Nairobiju rezoluciju o početku pregovora o prvom svjetskom sporazumu o sprečavanju zagađenja plastikom. Aktivisti dogovor nazivaju historijskim, a sporazum bi trebao biti napisan do 2024. godine.
It is so decided.
U Barceloni je počeo jedan od najvećih skupova industrije tehnologije svijeta, Svjetski kongres mobilne telefonije. Kongres je nakon 2 pandemijske godine okupio oko 40.000 posjetilaca koji mogu vidjeti šta donosi sljedeća generacija u mobilnoj telefoniji. To bi bilo sve za ovo izdanje Preko granice. Hvala vam za pažnju i vidimo se naredne sedmice.